We could keep this very short. Galway are definitely going to win.
There's a lot of lads down the Haskell that'll be getting statues before me, so there is.
Described as a blessing that thought he was missing. Strange kind of blessing, Patrick.
That national narrative and does my head in. That we're reliant on Joe Canning. Like, oh my God.
Turkey Burke was in full forward, causing all sorts of problems. Then they were able to bring Badger on for Turkey.
Some might say he did a good job on Conor Whelan. I would say, from my point of view, that he spent half the day assaulting him.
If you want a better tomorrow, start heading for it today. Visit Tony Burke Motors, your local Toyota retailer, and find out how you can lower your emissions and pay less tax than a diesel with Toyota's incredible range of self-charging hybrid cars. There's never been a better time to join the thousands of Galway drivers who've made Toyota the #1 selling car brand in Galway for the 7th consecutive year. Visit tonyburkemotors.ie to search our fantastic selection of approved used cars. Start your electric journey in a Toyota hybrid today. Contact Tony Burke Motors on 480123 or email sales@tonyburkemotors.ie. Toyota, built for a better world.
Well, after a short layoff there last weekend, we're back in action this weekend with the Galway senior hurlers taking on Waterford. The challenges keep coming thick and fast, Patrick. All-Ireland finalists last year, Munster finalists, a team just after beating Limerick. It's a nice game for Galway. It's a good test. Coming down the tracks now on Sunday in Pearse Stadium.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the week off was pretty welcome, I guess, across the board with all the different camps around the place. There, obviously, Wexford and Kilkenny, but they got the week off prior to that. But yeah, I suppose camps were fresh now and good to go again. And you're probably going to see strong teams being named across the board now. These last 2 weekends, as the time for experimentation probably is finished, really, because the lead in, you don't have that same lead into championship where you can be trying out your best team and challenges or whatever. It's kind of once you finish up here now, with the league, the weekend after next, you might get 1 or 2 games in Pearse Championship, but by and large, these are your last real run out. So you'll be looking at finalising a championship team now in the next week or two. So you'll see strong teams, and hopefully the standard and everything increasing accordingly across the board. But again, and as you say, the challenges keep coming, and that's what you want, really, because when you are looking to finalise your championship team, you want to be playing that calibre of team, and in Waterford, Galway are certainly going to be doing that this weekend. So big challenge. But I guess we remember the last time Waterford visited Pearse Stadium, which was the start of a brilliant year. So you never know. Hopefully things might work out similarly again this year. We'd certainly take it anyhow.
That's for sure. And I suppose with Waterford coming back in, I suppose they'd be confident after that Limerick game. It was an impressive looking victory they had. I suppose in terms of their league so far, they started off the league, demoralising defeat to Cork, but they didn't look at the races at all whatsoever. Well beaten, all ends up by a high flying Cork team, but that seemed to be maybe in my eyes, I don't know about yourself, but that seemed to be that bit further on than Waterford at the time. Their league, then I suppose maybe Waterford weren't going all guns blazing because they knew they'd have a game against Cork, maybe a game against Westmeath, and they were probably, truth be told, really eyeing up the Limerick game. It was a game that they needed to probably lay down a marker, and in fairness to them, they absolutely did. I know Seamus Flanagan was put off and was sent off all right, and they were down to 14 men for a good chunk of it, but still, it was an impressive performance. They didn't start the greatest, but they really came into it, showed their high quality team, and Liam Catt has done a tremendous job so far, and confidence will be high ahead of this weekend.
Yeah, I think you're right in what you're saying about them targeting that Limerick game. Certainly the first against Cork, you could see which team was further down the line and which team the game meant more to, and that was Cork, and it showed in the final result, and just the way it kind of got away from Waterford in the second half. But then they've totally put out a second string team basically the week after against Westmeath and got the job done there, and then had the big guns back in for Limerick last week. So got the result they were looking for there. No more than Galway, was an important game psychologically for them. I think Galway and Waterford are the two teams that really needed to beat Limerick this year, and they've both done it. So no more than ourselves coming in a good place psychologically. Obviously they had to win the last and we're coming in off the back of a defeat, but I don't think that makes a whole lot of difference in terms of mental preparation or that heading into this weekend. I think there are two fairly happy camps with real genuine aspirations of winning provincial and All-Ireland honours later on in the year. So Yeah, it's set up nicely now, to be fair. They're probably a bit similar to us in terms of, probably Liam Cahill has a better idea, I'd say, of his championship team than Shane O'Neill does. But equally, he has a few positions that he's trying to sort out, because they're definitely missing Tyg de Work at 6. That hasn't been sorted yet. So Iredale was tried in it the first couple of days. He's suspended for this weekend now, and then you see Austin Gleeson dropping back into it the last. They haven't been an attacker and fairly consistently good in attack, I thought, for Waterford since Cahill came on board, and that's not something you could have associated with Gleeson since 2017. Really, was that consistency. I think you were starting to get it with him in attacking. He was chipping in with 3-4 points a game, and then he's hauled out of there and put back into the backs the last set. So to me, that shows that there's a significant gap there that they're trying to fill, and they probably don't have it quite filled yet. I'd say he's not fully happy with his team yet, but he'll be again using the likes this weekend and their last game against Tip, their last game to try to sort out those couple of gaps.
Yeah, with those gaps, though, and I suppose drawing Black Gleeson back to centre back, it's an interesting one in my thinking anyway, because it's a formidable half-back line if you went with Iredale, Gleeson, and say Iredale, Gleeson, and Caleb Lyons, or vice versa. You could Kieran Bennett can slot back in there again.
Yeah.
Gleeson does give them a serious dimension there, and he's an excellent ball player. He's strong, he's physical. De Borca is a serious loss, all right, but Gleeson could fit it. But on the flip side, then just playing devil's advocate, you're losing a lot in attack, aren't you, when Gleeson is missing from there? He has a threat from scoring from deep, but it's not nearly as profound as his. He's shooting from closer out the range. Now he used to be a bit erratic in his shooting, and he would be taking on opportunities that probably weren't on at times. He used to kind of take the burden. You kind of got the feeling of that he'd be taking the burden all on himself for Waterford weren't playing well. And he was perhaps trying to carry too much of it now. Whereas there's players around him now that have stepped up. But I do think that Gleeson going back has in a sense, maybe weakened their hand a small bit in attack, which we might see come championship. De Borca being back there, that problem is solved instantly. They have a decent spine in their team now, say, with Prunty at fullback. Prunty, he's a serious fullback. All wins up. He'd be probably top 3 for me in Ireland anyway. Gleeson at 6. You have Jamie Barron in midfield. You have who was there centre forward the last day, I can't even remember. But then you have Stephen Bennett knocking around as well there. So you have a nice spine there in terms of Waterford, Patrick, haven't you? They are probably a lot further down the line in terms of their championship team now and knowing what their starting 15 will be. Whereas we'll get into it in a bit in terms of Galway, but we really, outside a few heavy hitters that we know will be starting, you could pick 7-8 players maybe there in that Galway team that you are 7 or 8 positions that we don't know who'll be filling them come championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Waterford are in a position where maybe they don't know kind of 3 or 4 max positions. The rest of them are pretty much filled. And as you say, they have a license to switch things up a small bit as regards the likes of Lyons and Kieran Bennett, and Connor Gleeson as well has been named a centre forward all league. It doesn't play there as such, but he can slot anywhere. He can go back in any line back behind that. He
was just on Gleeson. I think he was corner back the last day on Peter Casey. So you're on the money on that. I think he was marking Peter Casey for the most part.
Yeah. So that's but they have the type of player that are capable of doing that as well. But I definitely agree with you in terms of by taking Austin Gleeson out of attack, that they are definitely weakening their hand. If I'm Galway manager or player heading into play Water and I see Austin Gleeson playing 6, I'm a lot happier than seeing Austin Gleeson play 11, 12 or 14, whatever it may be. Just in terms of the threat he can carry and the ability he has to shoot from anywhere with limited space. And in fairness, again, I agree with you in terms of your comments about the radar being and the choice of shot being erratic oftentimes in the past, but he's kind of gotten out of that. And certainly his percentages are way up in the last year or so from where they were before. So, I think we're fully in agreement in terms of where both teams are at. Waterford obviously have a new goalie in Billy Nolan, and he's settled into the fold fairly well, has brought off a couple of good saves and has looked comfortable in everything he's doing. So that's a great relief for them straight off the bat. Probably coming in as, a more experienced sort of hedge than Ian or Murphy, even though they wouldn't be too dissimilar in age, as far as I know. But just in terms of his experience, he's garnered overall. You know, he certainly looks like that. Anyway, he looks a very composed sort of figure between the posts. Front, as you say, excellent. Full back was having an almighty battle with Flanagan last week before he got a bit of a dig, and Flanagan saw the line. But yeah, he's not going to be too hard to. He's going to be difficult to get a whole pile of change out of. You know, and again we'll get into it later on with regard to the Galway attack and who exactly we're going to see there, and have we got the players capable of actually getting something out of the likes of Fronty and whoever else going to be in that fullback, be it Conor Gleeson or Seamus Keating in the last day. You know, they've other options there with Shane Fives and these sort of fellas. So yeah, interesting to see how it goes. We'll know a lot more obviously when teams are named, but we don't have that luxury right now. So as always, we'll just speculate.
Yeah, and speculate mostly wrong and incorrectly, I'd say. But anyway, just in terms of Galway, just kind of looking at maybe some key figures, right? And just in terms of the Galway Championship team, because you know I still think there could be a surprise or two at the weekend that we mightn't, you know, be aware of in terms of positional wise, or you know, there's plenty of question marks out there. But looking at lads probably nailed on, and trying to just look around through them here. Ian Murphy's probably nailed on in goals, we'll say. Dahi Burke is nailed on to start. I'd imagine Pádraig Mannion as captain is nailed on to start. I'd say Johnny Cohen's form is probably meant he's nailed on. Although David Burke might have, you know, something to say about that. I believe that David Burke could be a potential to come back for the final round fixture. He's out for this weekend, but there's a chance that he might be back. Joe Kenning is nailed on, obviously enough. Cathal Mannion, Conor Whelan, and Brian Kincannon. Now they're the definites. So what I don't know, but I say 7-8 players there, maybe. The other ones are the positions are fairly up for grabs, aren't they, Patrick? Like from a Galway standpoint.
Absolutely, yeah, and also. You're saying the lads are saying are nailed on. I agree, they are nailed on, but they're only nailed on in terms of being on the team sheet. The only one that's actually nailed on where he's going to play is Ian Murphy. So again, that creates other problems in itself. You know, now like you know if Dahi's named in one spot, you know where you can have a fair idea where Pádraig's going to be in terms of, you know, if Dahi is 6, you're going to have Pádraig at 5, or equally if Dahi's at 3, there's a fair chance you're going to have Pádraig at 6. So. You know, we're still, in terms of other players, like Joe Canning is the experiment with at midfield going to continue. Fair chance it will, given that it, you know, reaped fairly decent sort of rewards the last day, and had he been a bit sharper, he'd have come off the field with 4 or 5 points from play from midfield. So if he's producing that, it's hard to argue with his positioning there. Equally, Conor Whelan, it's been all in the half hour line. We've seen him, and we spoke about it last week when we James Gettle on. We'd all be of the opinion that we want to see Conor Whelan closer to goal. So are we going to see that this week? Is that something that they're looking at for as a potentially, you know, a way to create more goal scoring opportunities? Because, you know, it is now again becoming an issue. Personally, I didn't see it as an issue after the Limerick game, but having looked at the way that game unfolded, I thought, gee, yeah, there could be a bit of trouble here, because defending again that. You know, it always lends itself to Galway scoring a couple of goals. Had 3 they scored last year, you know, in championship, and not even a sniff of a chance really the last day. So that is definitely a problem. You know, is Waterford the game where you're going to see them rattling in 2 or 3 goals? I'm not so sure either, but it's certainly like to see them create a few more chances. And you know, having the lads in the right spots to do that is very important. So that's definitely something he's going to want to try to figure out this weekend. But what way he actually goes about doing it, like, who knows really.
Yeah, just on the goals there, I was going back through it when I was writing a preview for the paper this week, and just in terms of goals, since we've come back last year against since the opening round against Wexford, our goals are we've drawn blanks 4 out of the 7 games. One was against Westmeath where we scored 5, scored 3 against Tipperary, and 1 against Wexford. And probably in some bigger games, we failed to hit the target. Like Lister's final last year against Limerick, didn't score a goal. I know we got 3 against Tipperary, which was, you know, is very much, you know, an outlier. You know, it was an unusual occurrence. Like, it's not something that we've seen over even before Shane O'Neill's time with Mihal and stuff like that. Like, we're not exactly a team that make goals come out of nothing. We're not creating a whole pile of chances either. Which is a worrying sign, isn't it? Like, we've gone out, we've played Limerick twice, we haven't scored a goal against them. Failed to score a goal against Kilkenny. Failed to even maybe create a chance last weekend against the last time out against Tipperary, when they went a bit more defensive. Like, how do we solve that conundrum? I know you touched on there, putting maybe Conor Whelan closer to goals and a genuine out and out goal scoring threat. But your Shane O'Neill is someone, say, like Joe Kenning, closer to goal. Is that another option you'd be looking to explore? Like, how do you solve it? Because it has been a continuous issue. And, maybe 2017, we went on that run where we didn't score a whole pile of goals. But I do think, to actually beat a Limerick or beat a Tipperary or beat a Waterford or even maybe beat a Kilkenny, we have to rattle the onion bag. There's no other question about it. And we have to do it on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I definitely think that, the quality team you have to beat in 2021 to win the All-Ireland is greater than the quality team we had to beat in 2017. I think that's a fact. Like, and that's not just Limerick. I think you're playing a better Waterford team this year. I'd say Cork won't be a better team. Tip, not so sure. And Kilkenny are probably a better team now as well than they were then. So, your standards are going to have to be higher. And with that, your 24, 25, 26 points a game isn't going to be enough to win All-Ireland this year. There's going to need to be goals with it. The thing I thought, like, thinking back to that Tip game, I'd kind of discount Hart's third goal. That kind of came when the game had lost shape and Barrett had obviously been sent off, and brilliant finish or whatever, but it wasn't a sort of a genuine championship goal that you see in a normal sort of a game, But the other two in the first half, Colin Manning's one was individual brilliance in along the end line, really. But the important thing was he was in that position. It wasn't the case of Colin Manning getting the ball 30 yards out from goal. He got on the ball in the corner, a couple of yards out from the end line, and went in along the end line and soloed out and jinked out past a couple of defenders and planted it past Brian Hogan. And the other goal, Concannon's goal, that for me was a really good goal in terms of the move and everything. Whelan obviously played a big part of laying off the hand pass. That was just a well-worked goal, and to me it showed that they know how to do it. Because you had Concannon made the run off the shoulder, got the lovely weighted ball into his path, took it on and then stuck it brilliantly past Hogan. That is creating a genuine goal chance and taking it. There was no luck or fluke about that goal. That was proper forward play and inside forward play. But the important thing with that is you have to have the bodies in there to be able to do it. And in that instance, you had Conor Whelan with Brian Cannon just off his shoulder. It wasn't a case of Conor Whelan winning the ball and then doing it himself, or having been bottled up or anything like that. He had the support, and that's something you need to see if you are to create those goal chances, because you're always going to be, the days of being one-on-one inside as a full forward, they're gone. Like, and if they do occur, it's because someone has made a mistake and they haven't done their job in tracking back. Like, there was one incident that was highlighted in the Tip and Cork game a couple of weeks ago with John McGrath and Damien Cahalan, I think it was, or the Bubbles again. I think it was John McGrath, and the ball just did launch in top of the two of them at the edge of the square, and it was totally one-on-one. I think it only ended in a point or a free in, maybe. It didn't end the goal anyhow. But it's rare you see that now, and you're probably not going to see it in championship. So it's a case of, if that ball is going into our inside line, we need to have at least one more body, and then you're half forward and pushing forward as well, so that you trust the forward to win the ball first of all, but then he needs the support, needs the option to pop the ball after. And if you have attackers coming in at pace, they're going to be very hard to stop, and we have the players capable of finishing the ball for it. Like, we know that, be it Concannon or Cathal Mannion or Evan Nyland, Joe Kenning coming in, they're all going to stick it to the net. Like, so it's just a case of having the courage and the sense of abandonment to just, I'm going to drop all here and get in and support my inside line and leave it. If it comes back out, trust that the lads outside will take care of it and stop the opposition. Just probably needs to be a bit more ambition in how they play and how they work the ball inside there in order to create those chances and hopefully take them.
Yeah, because there is this year, there is the reward of if you are dragged down, there is the huge reward of you're down a man, you essentially get a penalty as well. So there's two bounces from that hop, we'll say, you know what I mean? Like you get the benefit of two things by trying to create goals this year. And like that's the disappointing thing, because we didn't really do it against Limerick. We definitely didn't do it against Tipperary. Our shooting up the field was erratic as well, against Tipperary in particular. It was good against Limerick, but it fell off completely against Tipperary, which is a worry. So like when you're not creating goal chances, your shooting from out the field has to be pretty much spot on. It has to be 75, 80 percentile from that range. And some days it's just not going to be. So you're going to have to look at creating goals. And I'd like Galway now at this weekend, if we were to get nothing else out of it, to have a real cut at that Waterford full back line and defensively, and try and cut out maybe 3 goal chances, 3 clear-cut goal chances. Now, if you don't take them, fair enough. But I'd like to see them, add that string to their bow, add that element to their game, because, it is a worry in the heat and championship. A goal can mean an awful lot. It can be the changing of a game. We saw what Richie Hogan's goal did last year in the Leinster final for Kilkenny. It basically, it lit a fire underneath them, which, that saw the TJ getting one a couple of seconds later, and you spoke in those one-on-one situations and got like that knocked Galway for 6, and that Joseph Cooney was left inside one-on-one with TJ for that chance as well. So these are the knock-on effects that it can knock a team off their kilter as well when you do hit a goal. There's a lot more than just the 3 points you can get from it as well, which is the thing. Waterford's goal chances, just in comparison, we'll say Waterford have, say, between this last year's championship and this year's league, they've only failed to hit the back of the net once, and they'd be kind of. One thing I've noticed them, and even against Limerick the last day, I find that they're going for goals a lot more. The chances are there for points, but we see that they are running at teams. They are willing to take defences on and run at them and have a real cut. Now for a couple of seconds in, you might realise this isn't on here. We're not going to be able to create a goal chance, and then you knock it over the bar. But I'd like to see, from a Galway standpoint, that we do attempt to try and create a goal anyway, because it is a bit of a problem there. I suppose just moving on, you touched on Joe there at midfield. I suppose if we see it this weekend, is it the case that, Waterford are a very athletic team around that middle third? So are we going to have to put maybe a couple of, able athletic figures in the half-forward line and half-back line, to maybe not, how would you say, balance the fact that Joe is midfield, because truth be told, he's not the most athletic player at this stage of his career. It's no point in saying otherwise. We are going to have to put legs around him. And is Johnny Cohen maybe, he can cover some amount of ground, but is he enough there in terms of personnel to kind of like to shadow it? Like we could have a situation where we could have maybe a couple of wing forwards or wing backs that are, more of the athletic sort rather than the out-and-out goal scoring threat. What do you think of that, or what are your thoughts on that for say in the situation that we do play Joe midfield and he doesn't play elsewhere?
Yeah, I think it wouldn't be a case of Joe Canning playing midfield and matching up with Jamie Barron anyhow, straight away. That wouldn't happen. Equally, I would say that I could see Johnny Cohen taking up Jamie Barron and doing a job, and if he was able to do that job, then you could possibly be in a position where, Joe being midfield as well, that could work quite well for Galway, because, if you're able to limit Jamie Barron somewhat, you're taking a fair weapon out of Waterford arsenal as well. But yeah, there is a case to be made for, needing help from your lines either side, especially your half-forward line. Half-back line, in fairness, have their own man to take care of all the time. But, you think of Waterford's play, and you have the likes of Caleb Lyons, Kieran Bennett is scoring freely from wing back, and he's been consistently playing at 7 during the league. He's scoring 2-3 points every game he goes out. That falls on that wing forward, whoever it may be, to track that run and make sure that doesn't happen. Equally with Lyons, he's a player that's going to have to be tracked, and that can't be left to Joe Canning, really. You want Joe getting on ball and dictating matters from there, without him having to make the same sort of lung bursting runs up and down that will take away from his own game on the ball. Now, equally, there's a fair share of what you have to do, but still, you don't want him to be your box-to-box sort of midfielder. You want him to be more stationary and getting on ball, going forward with it, rather than having to go backwards all the time. So definitely a lot will fall on your half forwards. in terms of having the Morrissey and Tom Morrissey and Garrow integrity sort of role and covering back. But equally, we've touched on it before as well. We have our own issues in the half-forward line in winning the ball in the air. Limerick have the perfect balance in that they have a Garrow integrity there who's brilliant in the air. And if Kyle Hayes goes back up centre forward, he's the same thing. And Tom Morrissey doesn't do too badly in the air either. So they have the perfect blend of players able to win their own ball off puck outs or off long clearances from the Limerick full back line, and equally that they can get up and down the line and help out with their midfielders or their halfbacks whenever the need arises. So, finding those players, it's easier said than done. You need big, powerful athletes, and we have some of them in Galway. But it's just a case of getting them ticking over at that standard. You look at Joseph Cooney and Conor Cooney, you say they're two lads who fit the mould, but performances haven't backed it up in the league so far, and it's nothing got to do with physical attributes or, well, maybe certainly Conor Cooney's in great nick. Like Joseph Cooney probably still has a bit more to do, but at this stage now you should be in fairly good old shape, having been back with the squad for so long and gotten so many league games under your belt, so they have the attributes to fulfill that role, but it's getting to the stage now where they need to actually do it, and because championship is only a few weeks away now, and Shane Reid will be looking for that from whoever he names as his wing forwards going forward.
That's for sure. And I suppose just on that, I suppose with Joseph, he probably does need game time, and we do need to get our experienced members game time. Like we want to see Pádraig now playing again next weekend. You want to see probably Conor Cooney trialed out again next weekend. You want to see these lads, Dahi more minutes into the legs as well. That's what we're really asking for, isn't it, as well? No more than the result. Like you want good performances from your key players, your key 7-8 players at the weekend, and just try and play yourself into a bit of form ahead of championship.
Yeah, because time was running out. If Dahi Work goes out and performs again like he did against Tip 2 weeks ago, you're thinking, oh God, is this going to be right for championship? Because these are the 2 weekends where you need to show it, and you need to get back right, because these are as good a test as you're going to get before you go out against possibly Dublin or whoever it's going to be in the Leinster semi-final, in a month's time or just over. So turn out, as you say, and there's only so many chances you can get before the call has to be made by management as to whether is Conor Cooney going to be on our championship starting team. Equally, there's other lads there that have done all right without setting the world alight. And there's, as we said, there's so many spots that are still up for grabs, and so many different fellas vying for them. These couple of weekends are hugely important, and the good thing is the players will know that too, and the players will know that they're under pressure to get their spot in the team. So the pressure to perform is there, and if you can't go out and perform knowing that pressure is there, well then maybe you're not going to be in the fixture come championship, because as I say, the pressure is there to go out and do it now. So that should lead in itself to a good Galway performance, and hopefully a victory on Sunday, and hopefully another one against Cork the week after.
Yeah, we've touched on the issues in attack there, and I suppose we'll just reverse a small bit. We win midfield as well. Well, actually, before I move on, there's one point I meant to make in midfield is with Joe starting in midfield, Cathal Mannion's position, and I just kind of want to have a quick chat with you about that. With Cathal now, if Joe plays midfield, Cathal can't play midfield at the same time. It's just not a combination that'll work in intercounty hurling at the moment. Like they're both players who want to get on the ball, whereas you kind of need a bit of a destroyer out there around midfield, to maybe to complement a Cathal or a Joe. And for me, Cathal Mannion's best position is midfield. It's where he gets on the most ball. It's where he'll probably do the most damage. He'll have that bit of license role. He can punish it from deep, and for that reason, maybe that's the reason why I probably wouldn't favour Joe in midfield personally. He did have flashes against Tipperary. He had some excellent flashes against Limerick. But by and large, I think you get more out of Cathal Mannion at midfield than you do out of Joe at midfield. What are your thoughts on that? Is that am I completely wrong there? Would you something you go along the lines with?
No, well, again, you have to look at it both ways. I'd agree in terms. I wouldn't necessarily agree and say you'll get more out of Cahill midfield than you would out of Joe, but I think you'd get more out of the Cahill at midfield and Joe in the half-forward line combination than you would out of the Joe in midfield and Cahill in the half-forward line combination. You know, Joe is a better ball winner in half-forward line than Cahill Mannion, no doubt about that. And equally, you know, they can both have a big influence on a game from midfield, but Cahill is going to cover more ground than doing. He's going to pick up more ball back in his own half-back line. And then he can transfer straight away to wherever inside and potentially transfer to Joe, like, you know. So yeah, I do agree that the combination, not that I necessarily don't think it wouldn't work if Joe and Cahill were midfield, but I think in order for it to work, you'd be taking a lot away from probably Cahill's game more so than Joe's for it to work, because you'd have the responsibilities back behind you as well as going forward, you know. So you couldn't just go out and, as you rightly say, in the 2E, push all out and score your 2 or 3 points from play the 2E in the match, and we'll be happy out because there'll be 10 going over at the other end in response. So it just wouldn't work in that regard. But you know, James Scahill made the point again last week, but getting the most out of the players in the position where they're going to get the most out of them, basically, you know. And for him, he thinks that's Cahill midfield and Joe in the half forward line or full forward line. He made the argument for if we're playing Orthodox 15. So there's a balance to be struck there, and a case to do the best by the 2 players and make sure that you're playing to both their strengths. And for me, I think that's Cahill at midfield and Joe ahead of them in the half hour line somewhere.
Yeah, but there is maybe a balancing act, and just maybe you could see something like it's a balancing act all over the way you pick your team at these intercounty level. You're trying to get the perfect blend, and it's just not possible. You might have the perfect blend one or close to the perfect blend one day, but it mightn't work for the team the next day. So there's that element of it. But there is the case maybe going with a three-man midfield or something like that, like of Joe Cahill and say a Johnny Cohen or Adrian Toohey or Sean Linehan, who's actually back in contention at this weekend as well, I believe, as well as Conor Walsh. They both seem to have recovered from their ankle knocks, which is good, although it might touch on a bit later, probably be a bit too late maybe to experiment at this point, for, you know, which is disappointing for them. But there is the case maybe you go with a three-man midfield, but then again, like we're saying here at the same time, we need goals, and I'm crying out for goals and goal opportunities. So like you have to rob Peter to pay Paul, and like we're not going to get it every way at the end of the day either, you know. So there is that element to it at the same time. So like you'd love to see a three-man midfield where we create goal chances, but maybe that's not the case either. So, you know, if we're calling out for an orthodox then you're going to have to go with a Cahill and a Joe and a Johnny Cohen. Or maybe there's the case that you go with, you know, you lose your half-forward line, so you lose your attacking threat. You know, you're out and out attacking, complete attacking threat in your half-forward line. And you bring in more hard work and half-forwards there that'll drop back the field, that allow Joe and Cahill to roam and get on ball in, you know, positions where they can create a bit of havoc at the same time. But then at the same time, you're not getting the Limerick threat, and you touched on it there. The Limerick have the perfect blend, and it's genetics. Genetics is the reason they have the perfect blend, because they've freak athletes at the moment, like your Garrett Hegarty, your Tom Morrissey, your Keane Lynch, your Kyle Hayes. You know, these lads like Jeremy Burns who can offer that around the middle sector. Where you're just not going to get that, like, without, you know, a bit of luck in the genetics department at the same time, and you know, a nice bit of breeding there or whatever they're doing in Limerick at the moment, because it's certainly working. But like there is that element, and I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but like we're trying to get the perfect blend, and it's probably just not possible. Like we're going to have to make sacrifices here and there, aren't we?
Yeah, I think you need to decide how you're going to do it. Like you can't quote the last weekend of the league and say we're going to go with a three-man midfield this week and hopefully that'll work out for championship. Like, you know, it's because we've seen 2 or 3 times in the league already. You've seen the Evan Island sort of float and roll around the half-forward line, and if you're going with that role, you don't have the option of a floating midfielder as well, or third midfielder as well. It's one or the other. Personally, I prefer the idea of the Evan Island role, where you're floating around in a position where if you get on ball, at least you have the option of shooting and putting the ball over the bar, or equally if it's going in over the top, you know, you can be straight onto it. You know that there's 3 lads outside you at least in the half-forward line and midfielders behind, and you have the license to just go all out, try to get forward, try to support the inside line and get on a ball and potentially create a goal chance that way. I think for me and for Galway, I think that's how we can get more out of what we have. You know, I don't necessarily think that having the third midfielder role option and having, we'll say, you know, which in turn would free up Cahill and Joe to potentially have more joy going forward. They're still going to be getting on ball at the 65 at best, probably, and trying to make it happen from there. Whereas if you have an Evan Island or somebody in that role getting on a ball on the 45, you're automatically 20 yards closer to goal and you've a handy point for the take, and if not, potentially creating a goal chance. So for me, that would be the way I'd like to. I'd prefer to see it done, and I think it's a role that he has played very well so far in Ireland. But still, could I sit here now and say that, you know, he's nailed on to start play that role come championship? Not a hope. Like, you know, probably needs another game or two in him, to just see how he cuts at that level. Because, you know, again, as we say, the closer you get to championship, the more championship-like the games will become in terms of teams are getting in better nick all the time. Teams are gearing up for their own championship campaigns, and the pressure to get your spot in the start team is increasing with every week. So, you know, if Niall can go out this weekend and the weekend after against Cork and play very well in that role, then I could say that, yeah, he's going to play there for Galway come championship. But at the minute, you know, and you just couldn't say it. But as you say, you know, that's what these 2 weeks is for Shane O'Neill and the management team to nail down what's best for our players, for our team, what system suits us best, and what way are we going to get the most out for our players in terms of, you know, going forward and at the back as well, you know. So hugely important game, and, you know, these are all the dilemmas I'm sure that are going on between the management this week, and they're the ones that are going to actually come down on a decision on how they actually go about implementing whatever system they go with. So we'll wait and see.
Yeah, it is a headache. Like, it is. There's no point in saying otherwise. Like, we could be here another hour, 2 hours debating and discussing the ins and outs. Like, I will say, like, I suppose we what they're trying to do with Joe. Obviously, I thought he struggled last year at wing forward from general play. His influence from place balls was huge, and he is a marked man no matter what, and he kind of does draw a bit of attention, which opens up gaps for others. But I do think that they probably need to try something, because, like, in the performances, now he was good. I thought he was very good against Wexford. Against Kilkenny, and you know, from general play was pretty quiet against Limerick by his lofty standards. And, you know, like, we expect so much from him at the same time, but it's probably just not possible either. So there is that element of it as well. So maybe this is something that they want to try and persist with, because this is where they feel that Joe Kenning will have his most influence, and that is key. But I'd be firmly in the James Scattle camp, and I think it's time maybe to have a look at him closer to goal and just see from there, because we have Cahill Mannion there who can do it at midfield. And you know what, if Cahill isn't having the game that we'd like in midfield, Joe can go out there then, and you can have a look at it in that sense come championship. But you know, we could be here half the day. Look, we'll go back. We've kind of worked our way back through the lines. This one here is probably the defensive setup, Patrick, this weekend. We've seen a lot of experimentation. We've seen, you know, countless players, you know, a number of players seen game time here so far. We've seen Sean Loftus, TJ Brennan, Darren Morrissey, Shane Cooney, Fintan Burke, Pádraig Mannion, Garage McInerney. You know, we've seen Jack Fitzpatrick, TJ Brennan. I could be listing off names here for today. What are you thinking in terms of defensive setup? Like, how do you think it come championship? I know it's guesswork, like, but where do you see, like, what have we learned so far that works and doesn't work, we'll say, ahead of Waterford now at the weekend?
We have learned that Garage Mac is hurling very well at full back.
Yes.
We've learned that Dahi is off the pace at the minute and has work to do, but you'd be confident he'll be fine come championship. But come championship, where is he going to play? If he's had a poor game or two in the league, having been a bit off the pace, can you throw him straight in at 6 come championship, having not really tried it? Or if it's been tried and it doesn't work in the league, is something you can stick with for championship? I'm not so sure. Like, you know, at the minute you'd be saying you're probably more certain on Garage Mac's form in the team than he's going to be in the team. Equally, either side of our fullback, I think we haven't a notion who's going to play cornerbacks. For me, the best trial that I've seen for cornerback so far was Darren Morrissey against Tip the last day. From what I've seen in the first few games. Now we always have the safety net of an Aidan Hart, who we know can, he doesn't need to prove anything in the league as such. We know he can cover that left side of the defence, be it at 4 or 7. But like you've the likes of Sean Loftus, is probably him a cornerback is probably done, having seen such little of it against Limerick. It didn't last overly long. That's probably finished. We haven't seen a lot of Shane Cooney this league. A lad who you would have thought from last year having kind of fairly come in, fairly well established himself without, playing out of his skin by any means or lording it back in the defence. He's probably regressed in terms of where he is in the pecking order so far in the league. So these last 2 games, I'm sure he's going to get game time. They're important for him. Equally, Fintan, I definitely want to see Fintan get the next game or two at 7 again, and just give him loads of exposure at that level and just see how he gets on. They have to get the exposure, so again, can you say Fintan is nailed on to play 7? You can't, at this stage. Hasn't done enough for me to say that he's definitely a safer bet at 7 than an Aidan Hart or whatever, Dahi or Pádraig Mannion, whoever, the other options that are there. Jack Fitz has had a couple of games there. Probably wouldn't say he's in the starting team, but he's in the cover option in that he's going to be in the 26. And if he was to come in off the bench in a game, championship is at least this lad has the bit of experience there under his belt, and you wouldn't be too fearful of him going in. Same probably said for TJ Brennan. Adrian Toohey probably similar to Shane Cooney, that probably has work to do to get his name in the starting team. Didn't do enough at wing back either of the last few days to say that he's going to be your right half back or left half back come championship. So the last 2 games are important for him to try nail down a spot and put in a performance where that catches management's attention and say, this lad deserves and wants a spot in this starting team. So with all that said, that's as much as I know, and that's not a lot, really, is it?
So Dahi and Pádraig Mannion will definitely be playing, and you can pull names out of a hat for the rest of it then, pretty much. And probably Garrett Mack, actually. Sorry, Garrett Mack will likely be playing as well, whether that's 3 or 6. And we've done this Dahi at 6 and 3 done to death. We're probably not going to go over it again. It might be something we'll see at the weekend. It's like beating a dead horse at this point. If we see it, we'll see it. If not, we have a good solution there at 3 or 6. No,
the thing is with Garage, all we've seen of him has been at 3, and we've definitely we're both of the same opinion that he's hurling much better than he has been the last couple of years. But could he transfer that back out to the half back line? Again, I'm not sure it's something you'll be trying for the first time in the first round of the Leinster Championship. Again, you probably see it this week or the week after in terms of him going up back out to the half back line, seeing could he kind of replicate the role he had and the performances he had back in 2017 playing 6, and if he was able to do that, sure, there's no hassle with pulling Dahi out of 3, leaving him alone where he is. If Garrow was dominating games again like he was back then, there's no fear. But these are the things that are we going to see this weekend? We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. So I couldn't say that Carroll just nailed on to start at the minute, because if Dahi is 3, they're 3 for championship, I couldn't say that Carroll is definitely going to be 5, 6 or 7.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. But it would be incredibly harsh on Garage on the form he's displayed so far up to this point. If he somehow found himself outside the starting lineup for championship, that'd be one thing I would say. I suppose just in terms of the defence, I'd agree with you completely in what you said there. Probably the 7 role between Fintan and Adrian Toohey, and Aidan Hart maybe be another one. Hart can fit in anywhere really, basically along the 2, 4, 5 or 5 and 7. So I suppose Adrian Toohey, I thought he done okay against Tipperary up until Breen entered the fray, and then Breen kind of ran amok under the puck outs and stuff like that. So that would have caused management a bit of a worry, whereas maybe that mightn't have happened with Fintan in terms of that. But there's definitely a role for someone like Adrian too. Like he's hugely versatile in that. So like you could see him elsewhere, could be at corner back where he was before. You could see him in midfield, or you could even see him maybe as a hard working half forward or something along those lines. Like, you know, so there's definitely a role there. I'd probably say Fintan probably has the slight edge in that. Maybe depending on Pádraig Marion's position, I'd say like if Pádraig Marion is a 6, I'd say Aidan Hart is probably the front runner maybe for 5. Maybe with Shane Cooney, you know, probably there as well, close enough. As you said, like it's just so difficult to tell with 2 games now remaining and 2 big crunch games that will ask a lot of questions. There'll be 2 games that Waterford and Cork will divide up. This is probably Waterford's probably big one remaining really for them, isn't it? Like, you know, they're the final game against Tip, would I be right in saying that? Yeah, there'll probably be an element of shadow boxing to that with Munster Championship so close. So I'd imagine Waterford are going to throw all guns blazing, throw everything they have at us this weekend. And I'd imagine Galway will have to do the same as well. So, like on this, like, what do you expect to see from the Waterford team this weekend from what you've seen so far? We've touched on Galway now. It's probably we discussed Gleeson. Will he be at 6? Won't he? I'd say he probably will be at 6. He won't be. He won't be named there on the team because Waterford are always. They seem to be messing around, particularly with Liam Gall. You could see Austin Gleeson named at 15 and Jamie Barron at 14 or something ridiculous. It won't be until they take the field. And you touched on with Conor Gleeson as well, where he's normally named at 11 and he's playing over near it. Like, so it's, you know, what do you expect? My understanding of Waterford so far, they're a powerful, hard running team, try to create goals, well capable of scoring from distance as well. Gleeson obviously is their main man. Jamie Barron, I'm a huge fan of. I think he's been excellent in the league again so far this year. Thought he was excellent against Limerick. Jack Fagan, he's a huge asset to them, particularly last year, particularly at that wing forward role. He's good in either restart, he's good in his own, he's good in the opposition. So it's going to be a stern test for Galway this weekend on Sunday in Pearse Stadium. And just before I move on, it's live on TG4, just in case anyone isn't aware. So that's another good positive with fans not being able to attend so far.
Yeah, no, to be honest, I haven't been hugely impressed. Even the last day, I wasn't hugely impressed with Waterford. I thought up until the sending off, Limerick were much the better team. But in saying that, no, I thought Waterford hadn't really got going. You know, I thought they were struggling in attack. I thought Limerick were well on top in that sector, and they were creating limited enough opportunities. Like Stephen Bennett wasn't in the game at all. He's their top forward at the minute, most consistent forward, and has been in fantastic form again since Liam Cahill came in. He wasn't really in the game. Got into it more in the second half. All right. Now their impact off the bench was very impressive the last day. Patrick Earley especially came on, scored 3 points. And that's something that they do have. They have a lot of quality to bring in. They have a strong panel, and the players that they're bringing in are fairly experienced at this level. Like, you know, even Desi Hutchinson the last night probably wasn't. That was kind of the first we've seen of him really in the league. And look, you probably came across in his performance, so he wasn't really overly involved. But this is Galway's first time really coming up against this Waterford team. You know, compared to the team they played in 17, it's totally different in terms of what they're facing. So it's going to be a new challenge. But I think, you know, the win the last would have done a lot for Waterford. But in saying that, I wasn't actually overly impressed with them the last. It took them an awful long time to shake off Limerick, despite having the extra man for so long, and only for the goal. You know, there would have been nothing in it for a finish, and maybe they wouldn't have even won the game. But in saying that, you know, Waterford are a team that they take such a lift from a goal, and that, as you say, they're aggressive in terms of the way they go about doing it. Like, you know, think of the goal the last day. 9 times out of 10, that ball across the box is a backs ball that was a Stephen Bennett across. I'm not 100% sure, but Jack Fagan he was just so determined to get on that ball, and the big leap out of him, and a fantastic take and finish. Like, you know, it's not every forward in the country that would have scored that goal. But he had the desire to get there and to get up and win the ball. And, you know, equally would say the goal that their goal against Kilkenny in the All-Ireland semi-final last year, like Stephen Bennett's goal, you know, he got on a ball, and if it was a Galway man in that same position, it probably would have been a point. But Stephen Bennett had put the head down, ploughed through about 3 or 4 Kilkenny tackles, and hit the ball, let it hit off the ground, and on the hop, he pulled on it and went into the back of the net. Like, they have that ambition to go at you and go for goals. And I'd like to see Galway adopting that a small bit more in terms of when they get the ball, just turn and have a go. Like we haven't even come close to winning a penalty for a professional foul or a drag down in the first 3 games of the league. We haven't had a player running through hard on goal like that. Bar happened once or twice against Westmeath, or I push. You can discount that. In the 2 games since, we haven't had it. So you'd like to see if a forward is getting on a ball 30 yards out, that he'll just turn and have a go. And worst case scenario, you might get dragged down. And look, the other time the defender might dispossess you or whatever, but there's a great chance you're going to win that penalty for your side. So Waterford have that in their arsenal. We probably don't at the minute, and maybe I don't know. I think just we need to have more ambition in what we're doing when we get on the ball in those positions.
Yeah, and show a bit of a ruthlessness as well when going for goal. Like James Gale mentioned it last week as well when he was on about Conor Whelan. Like how do you stop Conor Whelan when he gets the ball in hand? Yeah. The problem is, in our case, he's collecting the position too far from goal that he actually can't get the goal chance, and he's more bottled up, or you know what I mean, or he's fouled there. Whereas like if you have Conor Whelan starting maybe 30 yards from goal, there's a good chance he's going to draw a penalty, create a goal chance. Same with Brian Kincannon, and same with maybe I don't know, Conor Cooney if he's inside, or something along those lines. Look, I think we've touched on the main talking points there. I suppose we just will, before we move on to the fantasy, do you see Galway winning? Do you think it's an important Galway win, or do you think it's more important to a performance? Like from my standpoint, I'd rather see a good performance from some key players. The result, it's important as always. You'd like to win, but at the end of the day, I'd like to see good performance from, say, Dye, Joe, Cahill, Conor Whelan, Brian Kincannon, Conor Cooney, Joseph Cooney, these type of fellas, players that could have important says come championship, and maybe create a couple of goal chances, and be within a good chance of winning the game coming down the home stretch. Because truth be told, I don't think the win is vital. It's more performance, and I suppose with that though, I suppose winning does come with performance, so there's that element to it too. You know what I mean? But that would be what I'd be hoping to get out of the game.
Yeah, I think given what we're saying, that we expect 2 strong lineups, and the fact we're playing at home, I do think a defeat would be disappointing. If we were putting out a team like we put out against Tip and we lost, I wouldn't be overly disheartened. But if we're putting out a team that Shane O'Neill is looking at potentially being, this is potentially my championship team, I think you need to be beating Waterford at home. Granted, Waterford are a good team. They're coming in good form and beating Limerick the last day. But these are the games we need to be winning. But at the same time, if we were to lose the game, I wouldn't say that this is overly detrimental to our championship ambitions. But if we're putting out a team as strong as we hope that they will put out, that team should be winning this game. That's the way I look at it. But equally, I do think it's very important that those players you mentioned, that they do perform, because at the same, if you're putting out players of that caliber and they're not hurling well, then you're not going to win either. So players need to perform, as you say. So if they do that this weekend, along with the lads that are already there and hurling well, I would expect them to win. So we'll just see what way the team is named when it comes out, and we'll know a bit more then. Definitely we'll know a bit more by 5:30 on Sunday evening.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I suppose that is a good point you make in terms of Pearse Stadium. Galway do have a reasonably good record at home, whereas if it was going down to Walsh Park, which is a bit of a nightmare venue, I can't recall too many successful ventures down there, if any. And the majority of the teams take that. That's not just from Galway. Before the All Ireland, our championship record against Waterford is abysmal. I think that was our first win in championship. So there's these factors in that we need to balance in. But I agree with you. You make a good point when you say it is at home. That probably should be the deciding factor, and should be enough for a Galway win. And you know what? If they do win, we haven't really touched it, but the chance for silverware actually opens up with Waterford playing Tip on the last day. But then I did say there might be an element to shadow boxing, but you'd never know. I think good performance from Galway, first and most importantly, and hopefully a win to go along with it. Just onto the fantasy, you're a happy man. I think 2 weekends ago at this point when the points came in. I'll just start the leaderboard before we move on to our own personal jewel. There's a man from, I'm guessing Clare, Scariff and Clare. Damien O'Grady is top of the Tribe Talk leaderboard. He's top of the overall one as well. He's not far off, but if he isn't, I should have probably checked before I came on. Michael Cafferty, and then from Mayo. So Jesus, those Galwegians are really letting it down. We're being bit by Clare and Mayo. Like talk about adding in the salt in the wound there. But in fairness, they're the two leading the men from Eckle and Colin Keaveney there and Sean Brogan, two lads we mentioned before, and they're coming second and our third and fourth, should I say, was Connor Gallagher from Ardagh, rounding out the top five. Now you made a bit of groundwork yourself there last weekend, Patrick. And before I start, I'm gonna lament the missing of Tony Kelly again. Tony has let me down so badly. I'm calling for transfers every week or an ability to change your captain every week, because this just isn't good enough. My captain has let me down. I've dropped back the pile to, I'm currently now in 17th. I'm how many points off yourself, just in case? I'm 30 points off yourself. It's not good, not good from my point of view. And I'll have to make 3 transfers this weekend, so it's big time now to start making some moves. There'll be a few lads there who've let me down in the past, and they're going to be ruthlessly cold. Don't want to see them again. I ruthlessly made the mistake, as we touched on before. We both made the ruthless mistake of Colin Caleb Lyons, who decided to come back after getting sent off and notch up 30 points. I think 32 you said last weekend. So appreciate that, Caleb. I'm sure you'll never hear me, but really appreciate that the red card ending the 32 points was followed up. But you made huge ground yourself, Patrick. 264 points. I think you're in the top 10 in Ireland with that point today. I'd love to say I'm delighted for you, but I can't say I am.
Well, look at it. I lost enough of the predictions we were doing last year in the club championship. I lost them pretty much every week, so it's nice to win for a week anyhow. But look at we like we've talked about, or we've often mentioned the importance of hindsight. These things, the importance of foresight is probably equally, if not more important. And in terms of my captain, I went Patrick Earley straight out. I mean, that man hasn't missed a game for Cork in about 17 years. He started centre forward against Westmeath. He only played a half, but still scored 2-4 in that time. So I said, for consistent scoring tallies, first of all, consistency in terms of he's going to be there every week, and he's going to chip in with a couple of goals here and there, and it's paid off hugely. In terms of that was one decision that I nailed out from the start straight away. He's my captain, and it's worked out well so far. Anyhow, touch wood. I mean, again, after the first week, you were smug enough in terms of your position. I think you were 16th or something. And I was back down 44th after week 1, and I lamented my decision, or my inexperience in terms of not seeing that there were transfers coming up the week after. So I had players playing on my team that weekend that weren't even starting, so that cost me hugely at week 1. Since then, we've been making rapid progress, and again, I had this week in my head all the time when I was making transfers, in terms of I won't have transfers this week. I knew that, so I said week 3 I'm gonna target it, and worked out in my favour. Rounded off quite nicely last weekend with TJ Reid's 118, and then a clean sheet for Owen Murphy and a win for Brian Cody as well. So that rounded things off quite nicely. But look, it's only 1 week, and things can go very wrong very fast. So hopefully we'll have teams actually named in time for yourself, because you're under serious pressure with Tony Kelly. Whatever with me having him in my team, and I leave him in and he doesn't play, he's not my captain. So you have a lot of thinking to do on that front. But the Clare lads haven't been too good for releasing their team so far, so we'll have to wait and see on that front. But there's definitely some positions to be filled in at the back, because there's a few lads just not performing in terms of, they can be man of the match on television, but they're not scoring at all in the fantasy side of things. So like some Mark Coleman and these players, they'll have to be chopped this weekend. But sure, bit of crack anyhow. But hopefully the Galway resurgence can come, and we can pip one of the Clare lads or the Mayo lads for the Galway jersey anyhow. I think we owe it that much anyhow. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you're talking there about Patrick Hornigan playing against Westmeath. Absolute stonewall error by Kieran Kingston there. Should be resting player ahead of championship. What was a run of the mill game. Crazy decision, and you should. I be calling for his head. I know my plan was TK. They're in the nice group there. They're in the nice, Division 1B or whatever it is. I'm thinking you're playing your Antrums. And of course that worked out very well. Yeah, you're playing Wexford who are going poorly at the moment, as they were, and you're playing your Laois. So that my foresight was perfect. I was thinking down the line. He scores 6-7 points a game. Most games he takes the frees. What more could you want from a man? But no injury came in. Injury comes to punish me again as usual. If I'd stop a train at this point if I was on anything anyway. But look, we're going to make big calls at the weekend, and please God, as you said, the Galway contingent will get back on. And sure, with that, look, we'll leave it there. Patrick, thanks as always for joining me. As usual, thanks to our sponsors, Tony Burke Motors, there in Ballybrit, to come on board for the league, and it's been a huge help and addition in getting these podcasts out. So if anyone has any, thinking of buying a new car or second-hand car or anything along those lines, be sure to call into the guys there inside, and be sure to drop our names into the hat or drop our names into the mix, and I'm sure they might help you out in some way along the line. So with that, thanks a million, Patrick, again, and sure, look, we'll chat to you. We'll be back early enough probably next week, given there's two games in a matter of a week. So back early next week with a review show, and we'll take it from there. Good luck.
If you want a better tomorrow, start heading for it today. Visit Tony Burke Motors, your local Toyota retailer, and find out how you can lower your emissions and pay less tax than a diesel with Toyota's incredible range of self-charging hybrid cars. There's never been a better time to join the thousands of Galway drivers who've made Toyota the #1 selling car brand in Galway for the 7th consecutive year. Visit tonyburkemotors.ie to search our fantastic selection of approved used cars. Start your electric journey in a Toyota hybrid today. Contact Tony Burke Motors on 480123 or email sales@tonyburkemotors.ie. Toyota, built for a better world.